Hi, welcome to release walkthrough video of Anvitra Search. Today marks an exciting release where we are building towards Anvitra Console. So Anvitra Console is a one place where you can manage your data enrichment pipelines or ship deployments or NLA training or a bunch of other stuff as well. So let's get started. And with this release, we are also introducing Docker embedded image. So earlier, natural language interpreter used to be a separate Docker image. Now, natural language interpreter also ships alongside your ship Docker image. So earlier you had text embedding service along with ship server. Now you have NLI and text embedding service along with your ship server. So you can just get started with just one Docker image. That's the idea, and it reduces the latency and other networking issues. And this is available on the cloud platform as well as on the enterprise deployments. And we are also introducing support for authentication. Mostly Shilp lives inside your private network, but if you're exposing Shilp onto internet, this will be helpful. Mostly it's a UI based authentication. We are using GoAIM for the auth part. We'll be adding more fine-grained controls at a later point of time. With this, you can actually put some control on what APIs request authentication and all. Good. And we are also adding some security layer where we can give what are the trusted origins for your Shilp server. So again, if you're exposing your Shilp deployment to internet and you want to restrict the domains from which the access can be done, those things can be done with this particular configuration. Also, we are introducing experimental support for MCP. So currently collections and search tools are there. So it's essentially your search and collections API itself, but exposed by MCP server. So you can connect this to your agent. I'll show this in a later point of time. And also certain improvements on UI where you can have where you can have debugging features. So let's say if you're running a search and you want to know what did the search take more time. Did it take more time during ingestion embedding, or did it take more time during doing the search or NLI interfacing? Where did it take time? All these metrics are available in the search API. Also, there are some improvements while using NLI and on the UI part. So on the UI part, it's mostly like if you're running Shilp on a serverless mode, and if you have kept your tab open and in the UI, it will be constantly pinging your backend to get the memory stats. But if you're running it on a serverless mode, then this would prompt the server to be running an instance even when it's not required. So this particular environment will make sure that if you disable it, then that ping doesn't happen. Yeah, so that's again, this is available on the embedded Docker images. And correspondingly on there are minor API changes, nothing breaking, mostly added certain new features. One is essentially if you have loaded your collection, you would be able to know how many documents are there in the collection. Then there is an API to enable metadata. Let's say if you ingest the data and then you realize you haven't enabled metadata, then you can go into this API or through the UI, or you can actually enable the metadata regardless of whether you ingested data, where you can select the fields and tell these are the metadata, like that. And certain API changes on search, more features are there where you can control what kind of fuzzy algorithm should be used for text matching. And yeah, timing field is available for debugging. And also if you're connecting Anvitra to your Shilp deployments, you can use this Anvitra option will be available for storage list and storage state. So essentially it's like if you connect Anvitra console to Shilp deployments, the data repository that is available in Anvitra console will also be available in Shilp, from which you can consume the data for ingestion. And we introduce set of settings APIs. These are the APIs to update or fetch the settings, and correspondingly all the SDKs are updated. Let's get into the demo. Yeah, so I'll just quickly go through this one. So let's say, yeah, you can see this particular change where it tells the document number of documents that are there in this particular collection. This is that particular information what I was mentioning about. Once you load the collection, you will be able to know how many documents are there. And let's get into the settings. So you can see this is a new settings page with this release, or you can just enable authentication. So I can just quickly go here. Let's say this is the GoAIM deployment that I have, and here I have had added those details. So I'm running it locally, so I'm adding, this is the callback URL. I can regenerate the client secrets. I can copy the client ID. I can come here. Currently we are only supporting GoAim, but we'll be adding more support in future releases. And so also here I can give the same URL. The backend URL for this is slightly different. And yep, I can just save it. Now if I just try to refresh it, yeah, let's say if I'm going somewhere, now you can see the enforcement still doesn't happen, right? This is majorly because, okay, there is a log, I haven't logged out yet. So yeah, earlier I was on a session. So if I just go back to this, it would prompt me to log in. But even though it's prompted me to log in, still the APIs are available. So I'll show what I meant. If I go to the API documentation and let's say if I'm trying to get the list of collections, this would still work. So let's say, you can see it, right? So let's say if you configured authentication and the configuration was not right for some reason, you don't want to get locked out of the system, right? So there is another parameter here where it enforces the, right now we just introduced authentication, but it's not enforced yet. So let's say if you go back here and go to the settings API, and you can fetch the settings here, you can see this is not enabled, right? So you can see tested is false. That means the auth is there, but it's not enforced. Only on the UI layer the enforcement is there, because it calls another me API, which in turn returns forcer1. That's the reason you are getting locked out. So yeah, either you can log in here and see if things are working or not. If it's working, you'll be going back to your collections. Here, the moment you do enforce, so let's say when you enforce auth, then you need the authentication to be there for all the APIs. Still, you can see I have enforced the auth, but I haven't told what APIs should have the authentication. So even if I hit the same API, it's okay. I'll just go to list collections. You can see it's still giving some response, right? So the moment I add this and save the settings, now if I try to call this API, it will give me an authentication error, right? So this is how authentication works. You can tell what all APIs that you need authentication for. So if you look at Anvitra demo in the website, so let's say this one, right? It has the search API behind authentication. All the APIs behind authentication except search. So search can be done without any authentication. Rest of the APIs are requires authentication. So that's how you can control the authentication if you're exposing the shell deployment to, let's say, internet. Now here you can add the origins. So I can say anyone who's accessing my API from localhost 3000 should be able to access it. Anyone outside shouldn't be able to access. So you can do this kind of stuff. Another is basically adding the integration. So I'll just show you how to do that. Let's say I just delete this. So you can log in. Yeah, you can log into your. Oh, sorry, I just delete all of them. Yeah. So you can log into your console. Console is available, console.anvitra.am. Currently, it's accessible to only specific teams. We are rolling out on a private beta basis. You can give a name to the API token. Let's say my test. I can specify the expiry of this, then create the token. Now I have to copy. This is a one-time copy that I have to do. Then I can go in here. There are only Anvitra console integration as of now. We'll be adding more integration at a later point of time. I can click on add. Now I can give the API key and the base URL. Since I'm doing it from Anvitra console itself, I can copy this as the base URL. So I'll just save this and let's say, so let's say I go here, you can see Anvitra here, right? Now if I click on it, you can see a data point it fetches the data source like NASDAQ number. So if I go to Anvitra platform, I go to data repo, I can see this as the NASDAQ demo, right? This is the data object, and this is the same object that you can see the. So here you can see how much is the size of the file, what's the what file it is, what's the schema, and what is the sample data. Now if I select this and I try to go here, I can see the same sample data here. This is also powered by API. These are major changes happening on side of auth and ingestion. Yeah, I'll also show the MCP part. So on the MCP side, this is a Open Nirmada is an agent builder. So here, if I going to add, let's say if I'm going to add this thing, shilp. So I have local shilp running. Here you can either use stdio MCP or a remote. In my case, we'll be using stdio. So and you can see this is the URL. So this is the local deployment of shilp, and I'm just adding /MCP, and I can click here to see the discover the tools. So you can see collections tool is there and search tool, and their schema is much similar to what the API itself is. And then an experimental feature, we'd love to hear what you're building with using Anvitra data. Cool. Yeah, that's all. Thanks for your time. Have a nice day. Bye.